Okay, so I'll be going through example 456. Example 456 is very much like example 3, except that they are not going to draw for you. So except that they are not going to draw for you, they will give you an equation. They will give you a scale to follow. So you will be awarded mark to follow the scale. Okay, and then so in part A here, right, you've got to follow the scale to draw the graph. So some people got a mind block, they didn't know how to draw. So they're supposed to fill up the table. So in order to draw, you will need a proper table first. And you are given the equation. So you need to calculate out all these values. So how are you going to calculate out? It's actually very simple, just punch calculator. But there are students who punch calculator and in the end, they don't punch correctly. So what went wrong? Sometimes when they punch calculator, for example, when x is -3, they, on their calculator, they never bother to put a bracket. So if you put the bracket, it will give you 11. So whoever don't give the bracket, they will actually give you a -7. So there are students who cannot fill up the table correctly, and then they cannot be drawing a proper graph. Okay, so please try out to make sure that your values is the same as my table. And then you will need to follow the scale and then draw out something that looks very smooth. You should be able to see a small graph very smoothly. So if your graph is not smooth, your answering will be a bit inaccurate. Okay, so we are going to go through the same answering, but when you are handling a graph paper like this, make sure you answer neatly on that piece of graph paper. Don't let your answer fly everywhere. So there are students who let their answer fly everywhere, then the teacher cannot locate the answer. It's actually very irritating, cannot mark. Okay, so be very organized to present your answer, everything on a piece of graph paper. So some teachers may even require that you actually draw out the table. So if you do need to draw out the table, please go ahead and draw it out. Okay, so I'm not drawing for you. You can just draw it out. Okay, so I'm going to be answering the question. I'm going to find some proper space to be answering the question. As you can see, I got a lot of space at the bottom of the graph paper. Okay, so the answering is exactly the same like example 3, except that you're using your own graph. Okay, so B part 1, your job is to find the value of y when x is equal to 1.7. So it's the same thing like in example 3, you locate the 1.7 until you touch the graph, and then you dot it over. So that will be your B part 1. So that will be your B part 1. Then I will be labeling very clearly. Then I'll be answering very specifically. When x is equal to 1.7, y is equal to 5. So do not just give a value 5. So what does that 5 represent x or does that 5 represent y? So answer fully and make sure you come with a dotted line. Okay, then second part of the question, the coordinates of the maximum or minimum point. So in this question, this is the minimum graph. So this is the coordinate. So B part 2, the coordinate of the minimum point. So write the full coordinate. So it's not that difficult. Don't reply half-hearted question. The last one, we got to find the equation of the line of symmetry. So I have been saying about line of symmetry. So in this case, the line of symmetry is here. So the line of symmetry is here. It's a vertical line. So, and I mentioned the line of symmetry is always x equal to something. So in this case, it's x equal to 0. If you put your answer as 0, you got no mark. So the equation here is x is equal to 0. It's a vertical line that cuts at 0. So it's the same procedure like example 3. Okay, except that you need to draw a proper graph. Okay, the same thing is going to happen for example 5. Okay, example 5, part A. They gave you a scale for the x-axis, a scale for the y-axis. So follow the scale, and they gave you the equation. So use the equation to complete the table. Use the equation to complete the table, and then you plot accordingly. Okay, so again, right, please make sure, like for example, when you got a -4, so when you punch into your calculator, remember the brackets, or else your answer will not be correct. And then you can just join them up. Okay, so you join them up to get a smooth graph. Okay, and then we will answer accordingly again. It's the same thing. So like for B part 1, find the value of y when x is equal to 1.6. So locate your 1.6 with a dotted line until you touch the graph, and you read over the corresponding value. So this is B part 1. So find a proper space to answer. So when x is equal to 1.6, y is equal to 6.2. Okay, then you look at the second part, B part 2. Find the values of x when y is equal to 5. So locate y is equal to 5. 5 is here. So when you are locating y is equal to 5, remember to look left and right. So here I got 1.3. So if I look left, I got another answer. So this is minus 2.3, and this is B part 2. So I will answer them accordingly. So when y is equal to 5, we gotten 2 values. So answer them in full. Don't be lazy. Don't just throw numbers. I have been telling you this. So I get very irritated when I mark graph and there's just one chunk of number. I really feel like giving 0. Okay. B part 3, the smallest value of y. So the smallest value is the lowest, this part. So you use a ruler. So sometimes the answer is not so nice. So maybe you need to estimate. So this part is B part 3. So in this case, I think I get something like 1.9. Is it 1.9? No, it's 1.8. Okay, so this is 1.8. Then I will answer them. The smallest y is 1.8. The lowest y value that the graph can get. Then again, the last one, a line of symmetry. Line of symmetry. So they will always be asking you about the line of symmetry. So the line of symmetry is a vertical line. So this is the line of symmetry. And you realize it cuts at minus 0.5. So the equation again is not minus 0.5. So if you would like the equation of the line of symmetry, it will be x equal to minus 0.5. Or else you get no marks. I have been saying that a lot of time. So please make sure you earn every single marks. It's actually very easy to earn the marks. If you just draw it properly, you get 3 marks. Every answer that you get is like one mark each. So it actually adds up to a lot of marks for a quadratic graph. Okay, example 6 is going to be the same thing. Okay, so example 6 is going to be the same thing. So again, the reminder will be, okay, so when you put in negative numbers, please make sure you remember to bracket it in your calculator, particularly negative numbers. So anyway, this one, they already give it to you. So you just have to fill in the missing blank. Okay, so if you can't even fill up the table, you cannot even draw a proper graph. Okay, so that is a very basic thing that you should be able to do. And again, follow the scale. So for part A, your job is to copy the table onto the graph. Okay, so you will need to copy. And then for part B, your job is to follow the scale. And then you draw properly. And then for that, you will earn 3 marks. So if you can see, right, this is my set base graph. And always when you draw, you indicate the equation, you indicate the x-axis, you indicate the y-axis. So students that are not meticulous, right, they will just don't care. They don't label x-axis, they don't label y-axis, they don't label equation. So these are the not students that are not meticulous. So that will be the very, very basic thing. Then again, you realize that you're supposed to answer exactly the same thing one more time. So for C part 1, your job is to find the values of x when values of y when x is equal to 1.6. So I'm going to find my values of minus 1.6. So minus 1.6 is somewhere here. So make sure it touches the graph and then you read over. So this is B part 1. So again, you find a proper space. Okay, so B part 1, when x is equal to minus 1.6. Okay, read carefully. Sometimes some students, right, they also read wrongly. Okay, and then we got another values also, 3.2. So 3.2 is here. So make sure it touch the graph. Then you can read off the corresponding value. So obviously, if let's say your graph is very bad, that means not smooth, then your answers wouldn't be accurate. So indicate that there is B part 1 again. So when x is equal to 3.2, the y that we gotten is minus 2.8. So don't dump values. Tell me what is it? Is it a x or is it a y? Okay, then find the values of x when y is equal to minus 9. So locate your minus 9. Minus 9 is here. So look left and right to answer the question. So when you look left, you get one value. So sometimes you may not get a nice square. Maybe it's like half of a square. So I will get a 4.3 here. And remember to look the other side. So some students, again, like I mentioned, they forgot to look left and right. And they end up getting a missing answer, so missing mark. So if you get deducted marks, like 1 mark here, 1 mark there, you find you lose a lot of marks. So answer the question. So this one is B part 2. So B part 2, when y is equal to -9, x is minus 2.3 and 4.3. Okay, then answer, let's look back again. I need to find the greatest y and the corresponding values of x. Now, this part, some students, what is corresponding values of x? That means you go and look for the highest y first. The highest y, when you touch a graph, you will have the corresponding x. So this is B part 3. So B part 3 asks you for the greatest y, so you reply them accordingly. The greatest y according to my graph. The highest is 2. And when I dot down, I got x equal to 1. So in a way, right, this is also the maximum point if the question asks for it. But in this case, the question never asked for it. So the question could have asked you for the coordinate of the highest point. Okay, so you answer according to what they ask you. It's not that difficult. So they ask you for apple, you give them apple. Don't give them orange. And you always end up losing marks. And again, the last part, the law of symmetry. So the law of symmetry is always corresponding to the highest or the lowest point. So it's quite obvious that this is the law of symmetry. And it cuts the x-axis at 1. So what is the equation? Is the equation just 1? So the equation is x equal to 1. So do you see that it's a very familiar kind of question? Okay, so everything is exactly the same. So it's actually quite easy to earn marks. But if you are not meticulous, you will just end up losing 1 mark here, 2 marks there. And out of a quadratic graph that is 5, 6 marks, maybe you just earn 2 marks, 3 marks. Okay, so otherwise it's quite easy to earn such marks.